So I was thinking of a Bleach match to do for you guys. I was like, man, I haven't done like a Bleach versus video in a bit. We just did the Sinbad video, we did the Yugi video. Let's actually do like a dedicated solo video for Bleach. You know, just me by myself, good old-fashioned Bleach Hub content. And as I was sitting around and thinking of topic ideas, I realized I haven't done Kenpachi versus Byakuya since I started my channel. And I was like, you know what? I've grown as a power scaler a lot. I've reread Bleach a few times. My views on the series have changed significantly since I originally put out that video. So let me go ahead and give it a redux version. You know, let me redo the Kenpachi versus Byakuya video, which I'm sure nobody's going to mind. I mean, this is one of the more popular matches in the entire series. I mean, these are like the titular rival characters in Bleach. If anybody here has read Fairy Tail, it's basically like the Loxus versus Jalal kind of argument, where they're the really cool side characters that everybody wants to see them fight, and it always feels like we're teased that they're going to be getting a fight, but they never actually fight each other. Or if they do fight each other, it's in some weird filler or some odd inadvertent way. So in today's video, we're going to be splitting these fights into 4 rounds. We'll have the Soul Society arc, Fate Karakura Town, 1000 Year Blood War, and Camp for Your Own World. If you guys enjoy Bleach power scaling content or just power scaling content in general, be sure to give this video a like and click that subscribe button, because that's pretty much all we do over here on the Bleach Hub channel. If you want extra content like debates that I do or any past live streams that I've done, make sure you click that join button to become a channel member, because that's all available to channel members. So make sure you click that join button if you want extra content. But with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into this video, starting off with the Soul Society arc. So when it comes to their fight in the Soul Society arc, it's pretty blatant that Byakuya is portrayed to be the stronger character in this arc. That's also partly due to Kenpachi getting the shaft when it comes to the matchups, because both Kenpachi and Byakuya get to fight Ichigo in this arc, but Byakuya just gets to fight a blatantly more powerful version of Ichigo. Kenpachi fights Shikai Ichigo, and towards the end of the battle, he gets some amp with Zangetsu, and they end up tying at the end of the battle. You could maybe say Kenpachi technically got the W because he's the last man standing, or he went down second. But then right after that, while Ichigo's still injured, he's then recognized as being a captain tier fighter by Jushiro when he flies to the Repentance Cell. And so after getting that amp, he then trains with Zangetsu and then also acquires Bankai on top of that. So not only is he training and his base is getting stronger, he then actually has a new form that is making him 10 times stronger on top of that, and that's the Ichigo that Byakuya gets to fight. And on top of that, Byakuya pretty handily beats Bankai Ichigo. You could argue that if Ichigo didn't want a quote-unquote fair fight, he actually would have beat Byakuya pretty early on in their fight. However, that's also due to Byakuya being too cocky at the beginning of the fight, because when Ichigo does the whole, oh, a miracle never happens twice, and tries to pull that same move on Byakuya kind of towards the beginning of their fight, but before he does Senkei, Byakuya actually reacts to and catches Tensa Zangetsu. And then obviously as Byakuya starts to get more serious during the fight, when he activates Senkei, that's when Ichigo's body starts to give out. It's not that he's getting weaker, it's just that he's more having a stamina issue because his body is not used to him using Bankai. I mean, to be fair, he did just unlock it in training, and now he's gone off to fight one of the strongest captains in the entire Soul Society as his test run for Bankai. So it is understandable that he's having some stamina issues. But the crazy thing is that you can't even hold that against Byakuya, because right after this, when Byakuya quote-unquote kills Ichigo, White takes over Ichigo's body and barrages Byakuya with a bunch of holified Getsuga Tenshos, and Byakuya survives. In fact, he's doing well enough to still use his ultimate technique, Shuke Hakteiken, and after clashing with Ichigo, Ichigo's barely able to prop his body up. You know, he's literally having to hold himself there with Tensa Zangetsu, whereas Byakuya is still having a little chit-chat with Ichigo, and after Ichigo convinces him that, you know, the law in the Soul Society is bad and that maybe they should change, Byakuya gives him the W because Byakuya no longer has a reason to fight, and he flash steps away. In fact, keep in mind that Byakuya is still doing so good that he's able to blitz Gin and protect Rukia from being killed by Gin. So not only does Byakuya fight the stronger Ichigo, but it's not like he's a slouch either. I know a lot of people like to talk about Kenpachi and how durable and dexterous he is, but let's not forget that Byakuya also has insanely crazy feats in that department in the Soul Society arc. which is why I believe you can't even make the argument that Kenpachi would outlast him or anything, because Byakuya is just as, if not more durable, at least in the Soul Society arc, has the better feats from fighting a much stronger Ichigo than Kenpachi fought. And I think the best you can maybe do is get into some weird semantics where you're like, well, Kenpachi probably got stronger because, you know, he had a near-death experience, and we know that every time Kenpachi has a really grisly fight, he comes back even stronger. He basically is a Saiyan and gets Zenkai boosts. Although we can't quantify that, we don't know how much more stronger he got. And then we could say the same thing for Ichigo because we know Ichigo has an insanely high potential. And so we could apply the same thing from Ichigo's base to his new base after his Bankai training. So round 1, we're going to give it to Byakuya. Then we move on to round 2 in the Fate Karakura Town arc. And this is where it shifts more in Kenpachi's favor. Because if you just look at all of their showings in the arc, Kenpachi is definitely portrayed to be the superior fighter in this arc. Looking at the espadas that they both fought, Byakuya fights number 7 Zomari, whereas Kenpachi fights number 5 Nolitora. They both defeat their opponents, meaning that Kenpachi fought and beat a stronger member of the Espada. If you want to make that victory seem even more impressive, you could say he fought the Espada with the hardest Hiero, whereas Byakuya is fighting more of a speedier Arrancar. So you could try to argue that they're trying to press that Kenpachi is having like a raw physical battle, whereas Byakuya is having more of a haxy speed battle. But then we could also look at the Yami fight, where Kenpachi tears Yami apart and then tells Byakuya to finish him off. Byakuya then makes a remark where he's like, oh, I guess he's actually not that close to death, implying that Byakuya could still have a pretty decent fight with said Yami, but Kenpachi retorts and says, he was one hit away from death for me, meaning that while Byakuya thinks Yami is still strong enough to continue fighting, Kenpachi's like, nah, I could just one-shot that dude and be done with it. Then on top of all of that, you have the statement from the Spirits Are Forever With You light novel, where we actually learned that Aizen specifically led the captains to Hueco to seal Kenpachi away because he was one of the 2 people he was worried about enough to take precautions against them. The other character was Yamamoto, where he made an entirely new entity to seal away his Zanpakuto. Not saying that Kenpachi is as strong as Yamamoto, I think that's a little absurd to claim, but he is in very good company as one of 2 characters that Aizen made special preparations for because he wanted to avoid fighting them at all costs. So if you were to ask me who is stronger, I would say Kenpachi's stronger in this arc. Maybe you could try to make an argument and say that, well, Byakuya and Kenpachi are relative enough that maybe Byakuya can out-hacks him, maybe he can beat him with some Kido, some of the Bakudos. But if Kenpachi's spiritual pressure is just blatantly higher than Byakuya's, he'll probably just chad through all of the Kidos anyway, and it really won't make much of a difference. And Kenpachi actually has a technique of his own in this arc. He can actually use Kendo, so he's not necessarily a sitting duck either. He can swing that around and just shoot laser beams all over the place. So it's not like Byakuya is the only one that can kind of control the battlefield. So Fate Karakura Town, I lean more towards Kenpachi. Then we move into the 1000-Year Blood War, and this is probably going to be the most contentious one. While the past 2 rounds I think are pretty blatant in the way that the characters are portrayed, 1000-Year Blood War is a little bit odd, because when Kenpachi's training with Unohana, Byakuya, Renji, and Ichigo are stated blatantly to be rivals to Kenpachi. That's why Unohana tells Kenpachi to not be sad. She's like, you have other rivals that can give you a good fight. Which I don't think anybody would argue that those characters are not on the same level of Kenpachi. Maybe people would argue Renji's not on that level, but don't worry, I have a Renji video in the works, so when that comes out, people will put some respect on his name. But at least for Ichigo and Byakuya, I don't think people really have an issue with that. Where things kind of come to a head is the whole Gerard fight. Because Gerard goes to that God Maximum King Snickers size because of Byakuya's power. And Gerard, after absorbing Byakuya's power and grows to a strength that he's, quote, never reached before, he's actually able to beat up Shikai Kenpachi without the eye patch. So you may be able to imply from that post-Zero Squad training Byakuya is stronger than Shikai Kenpachi. However, Kenpachi then activates Bankai and completely dogs on that Gerard, which I think makes it very apparent that Bankai Kenpachi would throttle Byakuya. I don't think there's really any arguments to make about Byakuya being able to beat him because Gerard grew to such a power because of Byakuya's power, and then Bankai Kenpachi just completely dookies all over that. The issue is then Gerard absorbs Bankai Kenpachi's power, grows to an even stronger state, and then Byakuya obliterates that good art with his special new technique. So there's quite a few ways you can look at this. You can look at it like base to base, Byakuya is stronger, but with Bankai Kenpachi just throttles Byakuya. However, if Byakuya can use his super secret awesome special technique, he could obliterate Bankai Kenpachi. In that case, I think it's very even, because then it really depends on what either fighter does. Does Kenpachi go into Bankai immediately and just blitz and one-shot Byakuya? Or does Byakuya not take the fight seriously at the beginning, and even if Kenpachi doesn't go into Bankai immediately, he gives him the chance to go into Bankai? Because I'm going to be honest, even if Byakuya does try to use the technique against Bankai Kenpachi, he still has to hit him, and it's not like it has any special properties. It's just this big, all-out, powerful nuke of Byakuya's Bankai. You could essentially just look at it on the same vein as like Vegeta's final explosion, where it's just taking everything he's got and just nuking somebody with it. And if he doesn't hit Bankai Kenpachi with it, then he still loses. So on that note, I'm more willing to give it to Kenpachi in the 1000-Year Blood War, but I don't want people to think that it's a completely uneven fight, because do remember that Byakuya does have that edge, and he is competitive in this fight. It just seems as though Bankai Kenpachi is a little easier to get out than Byakuya's super ultra maximum super new technique. Then we have Can't For Your Own World, and this one again is very blatant because Can't For Your Own World takes place a little bit further on down the timeline, and it appears as though Kenpachi is the only one that continued his training, because Byakuya, Yoruichi, and Tokinata are all put in like the same relative tier, but then Kenpachi is like the god of Can't For Your Own World. Like there's almost nobody that can step up to Kenpachi in Can't For Your Own World. He's like the dude in that novel. Kenpachi pulls up and he just slaps everybody. So it appears as though currently Kenpachi has broken away from Byakuya and like people like Toshiro as well, and he's definitely moved into a tier of his own. Seems pretty safe to say that he would just kind of slap everybody in Can't For Your Own World. I have no idea what the other captains are doing, if they're just not training at all, if they're just lightly training because we're in a time of peace. I have no idea why they're slacking, but apparently Kenpachi's just been getting that creatine. He's been hitting the gym 7 times a day and just kept maintaining his regimen, because he's apparently just in a tier of his own now and Can't For Your Own World. But let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. If you disagreed with anything I said in this video, or maybe you need some clarifying statements, maybe you want to kind of go over things with me in the Discord, that is going to be linked down in the description down below. Feel free to come in there. As long as you come correct, you know, you'll have some respect for me, I'll have some respect for you. We can have a nice civil discussion, but if you come in there with the gloves off, I mean, I can't promise your safety or anything, right? I can't guarantee you'll have safe passage into the Discord if you're going to come in there acting a fool. But with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get out of here. You guys have yourselves a nice day. Peace late, guys.